had a history in bootlegging, like you were a real live bootlegger.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, it's a long story also, but when I was a kid.
The question is, did you run moonshine illegal? The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media. Hey everybody, it's Dale Jr. back again for another episode of the Dale Jr. Download. It's the guest segment on Wednesday, and our first guest of the 2025 season is Richard Childress. It's been about 5 years since Richard has been on the show. A lot's happened since then, particularly a incident between me and him at Phoenix that I haven't really talked about with anybody, especially him. He kind of chewed my ass on pit road before the 7-car went out and won the championship. We'll talk about that, hopefully, and also just kind of see what dude's been up to. I mean, there's a lot going on in the sport, and he's certainly got his finger on the pulse of NASCAR, and he's got some opinions. So I'm sure we're going to hear them and maybe some really cool stories. So let's get him on in the room. Richard Childress on the Dale Jr. Download.
So I was your first guest.
Yeah, your first guest, kicking it off.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, we're getting the season started off with a bang.
I know. It's good. How about that race the other night?
I know. We were just talking about it, me and TJ. Do you think they'll go back there next year?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
go back. It was.
I figured that they would have already. I mean, in a perfect world, they go to Coliseum and do it, and if they don't, if it goes well, they come back and do it again. If it doesn't go well, which it really didn't the second year, they probably just stop. But they have to probably put three. They have to probably have like a commitment, right, with the city, the Coliseum. So I mean, for me, and a lot of people, a lot of fans that are watching. That are speculating, debating on whether they're going to go back next year, I bet NASCAR's already know the plan. They already got a commitment or an obligation, right? You can't do everything you did without some sort of a commitment and obligation that the city gets from NASCAR, right, or the town gets from NASCAR.
Yeah. I think the economic impact that race brought to North Carolina, Winston-Salem, I think it was a big hit. I think we'll be back at Bowman Gray Stadium next year. They'll tweak on it some,
sure.
But to put the lights up there and put those soft walls, I'm friends with a lot of those modified drivers, and, man, they love it because it saves them. It's a safety deal for them. So
sure.
When NASCAR did all that, they'll be back.
Yeah, I think
so. Sure.
Do you think that there's a way to run something besides the Clash there? Would you run the All-Star race there? I thought that'd be a good idea because warmer temperatures, more comfortable for fans, probably a better race because track temps will be better and higher for that tire. And
definitely.
$1 million on the line. Maybe Denny might move that, Chase out of the way for that. He didn't want to touch him.
Yeah. I think if the All-Star race would be great there. Any type of racing. I keep thinking just to go back to our roots, Hickory. You ran Hickory many years. Go back to some of the route, racing like Hickory, Bowman Gray Stadium.
Could you have that race at Hickory?
I don't know that you could have it, but you probably could doing some work on it.
Yeah.
Hickory's smaller, in my opinion, isn't it, or about the same? I
think the sizes of the track isn't in question. It's more about like the infrastructure, facility, the fan experience. You got 17,000 people at Bowman Gray. You probably can't get 17,000 at some of these other short tracks, right?
Yeah, unless you bring in temporary stands or something.
Yeah.
But I love grassroots racing. It brought back so many memories. I went over there. I got there about an hour earlier than everybody, just by myself, and I got up there at the field house and just sat there and looked out across the track in the grandstands and just thought about so many things that went on back in my career when I started. That's exactly where I started.
So we go to the Coliseum to get new fans, right?
Yeah.
Do you think racing at Bowman Gray like we did this past weekend, I know our current fans loved it. Me and you loved it.
Yeah.
Do you think that is a way do you think that also gets us new fans when they –
Yeah, I think once we take a look and see what our TV ratings are and all the people that have called me or text me or anything I've ever seen, people come back to me, man, that's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen on TV for solid racing. That's old-time racing. And they loved it. And I think the fans, you're going from a quarter-mile racetrack to Daytona, a 2.5 mile, which is night and day. So with that, I think the fans will say, well, I wonder what Daytona's going to be like. I think it's going to depend on how our TV ratings.
Yeah,
those fans over there were real race fans.
I agree. I can't wait to see the number on television in terms of the rating, because I think that's certainly going to steer the future of Bowman Gray for the NASCAR Cup Series. When we sit there and watch that race, I thought the TV package was perfect, easy to consume. I watched it. So I was on a trip. I was working with a new partner down in Florida, and I was at a sports book. And being able to see heat races the night before, I miss that. I miss being able to see any on-track action, right, the day before the race, qualifying, practice, what have you. So for me to be able to sit down and go, all right, man, I'm going to get a taste of what's coming tomorrow. I'm going to watch these heat races, and that's going to be a little idea. And I know it's Bowman Gray, and it's new, and none of us have ever seen it. And it might be a different experience if we were to go to a track that we've raced at 100 times. But we were at Bowman Gray, and I tuned in going, man, I can't wait to see how these cars race. And I loved it. Was very easy to consume that little TV package on the heat races, and then the next day, and the last chance race, of course. And then the next day we had the feature. And so for me, it kind of reminded me, it gave me a Speed Weeks feel. And I know we weren't in Daytona, and we weren't down there for the traditional style of Speed Weeks that we all remembered years ago. But it gave me a feeling that Speed Weeks was back, which I've kind of missed. As we've shortened up the schedule of Daytona. Remember, I know a lot of our fans may not even remember going there for 2 weeks straight. It was a lot. There was over 10 hours, 12 hours of cup practice throughout that whole process. It was a bit unnecessary, but it also served a purpose that sort of teased and led up and built up the expectation and excitement around the Daytona 500. And I felt like the Clash went back to supporting our most important event, and that's the Daytona 500. This Bowman Gray weekend, as exciting as it was, made me look forward to the 500 more so. Yeah, which I think is really, really important in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think, I go back to many years ago, we'd have qualifying races even at Charlotte, and like on a Friday or something, we'd have something Talladega, they'd start so many and then they'd have a qualifying race. That is something that's missed. But one of the biggest things today that NASCAR realizes, and I think a reason we got to pull back, is the economics of our sport isn't what it used to be. Yeah. And we're all kind of adjusting, and NASCAR's doing a good job of trying to adjust that. But we can't take away – I agree with you. We can't take away from our race fans, because that's what we do this for. But I think that it'll be interesting to see after this event and see the reaction and the TV numbers, and to see how – NASCAR takes it, and it could be something that we'll see more in the future. Yeah, like having that the heat races, I think, was really good.
I agree. We're going to Daytona, and I'm gonna join you this year trying to enter a car in the Daytona 500. What kind of advice do you got for me as a first-time car owner in the Cup Series to try to attempt to make that race?
Well, first of all, you're following your dream. Yeah. Keep following your dream. Your dream is to have a Cup team someday, be a Cup champion from the side of owner. So just follow your dream. That would be the first advice. That's what I give people when they ask me, about things. But I think it's going to be – you're going to enjoy it. I mean, you got the gut-wrenching moments at Daytona, but you still – making that race is not an easy task. But if qualifying the top two, seems like the Fords have really got that down pretty good. But we've been able to put a Chevrolet in there, so I feel good about your cars, our cars. We do. I think we do in the 62 or something like that. Yeah. But there'll be about 4 cars trying to make it. You got a really good, solid driver. You've got good engines through the Hendricks deal, I think you're going to have a heck of a good shot. And Justin really runs good there, and you're a good old owner. So that's going to make a difference.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've told everybody that, I don't assume anything in terms of being able to make the race, but I'm going to, get there early. I'm going to go in Tuesday, and I'm going to be up early Wednesday. When we'll go through tech with the car. I'm going to be in the garage. I'm going to watch them. I'm going to be with them pushing it out to practice and qualify, and I go through that whole process. I don't want to miss a thing because I think and you can speak to this, like you've raced a long time, pushed a lot of cars out onto the grid. But when you were – and when you moved into the owner's side of things and embraced that change in your life, and you were no longer a driver, the confidence in the pride, I think, in seeing your car and pushing your car out onto the grid to qualify for a race like the Daytona 500 is quite different than what it's like as a driver.
Yeah, 100%. I can remember back. When I become an owner with Dale, we run the first 10 races of 1981, the last 10 races of 1981. And to be the first one, I was really nervous, and I felt like somebody cut my arm off or something. How can they race without me? I found out pretty quick. The race went on. And but, man, it put pride in me, and I wanted all of my employees to know I'm buying in on this as well. And today, I'm at the racetrack about every race when it opens, as close as I can be. I don't push a car like I used to out there. I'm just like you. It's some pride to walk out on that line and listen to the fans holler and cheer when you come out there like I used to do with Dale.
I am kind of surprised, that at your age, you're 79 years old, and you ain't changed your routine at all. There's a couple exceptions similar to you, like Richard Petty, and I mean, there's these guys that have been part of this sport. We see drivers that when they retire, and I know you're an owner and you have that involvement, but we see these other guys that'll retire and you'll never see them again. I mean, they'll disappear. I mean, winners, champions, Hall of Famers. Ricky Rudd's, going to the Hall of Fame, and man, you don't know where he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
You don't see him at the racetrack that much at all. But you're it's like you can't quit it, like you can't give it up, and it's just and it's like there's never a weekend that you don't want to be there. You talk about getting there early for Bowman Gray, like you still have the same love and enjoyment and excitement for being there, even though you don't turn a wheel. Even though you gave up probably the best part of it, when you move from driving to owning. I don't know how. At some point, I feel like even I wouldn't be able to sustain that commitment that you have to it.
Yeah,
How do you explain that?
I don't know. The biggest thing is I think I have a passion. And, everybody says, well, why you get so wound up? I got a passion, for the sport. I've been involved in it. It's been really good to myself and my family. And but I go because I love it. I've been going since we counted up 58 years, not counting the days I ran the old Bowman Gray stadiums and 311s and all the old dirt tracks. But I just love it, man. It's just the fans getting to go out and see them.
But you could be in a vacation home somewhere on a beach somewhere.
Yeah,
that ain't you.
No, that isn't me. I'd go to Montana when we had the ranches out there, and I'd only go when I'd head out to the racetrack, and I'd stay and then head to the racetrack. It's just a passion I got and a love I got for it, and I get wound up every now and then, but it's because I love what I do.
Yeah.
And hell, I wouldn't know what I would do if I wasn't racing.
Yeah, I hear you. So you do get wound up.
I'd still get a little wound up.
Yeah.
I do. I get. It just is part of life, man. If you hadn't got a passion for what you do, and feel good about what you're doing and decisions you make. And I want my people to know that I work with them. Nobody works for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been my saying. I want them to know that I work with them, and we're part of a team, and we win together, we lose together, we fight together, we do whatever it takes.
Yeah. We were I do this show, and sometimes I don't get sometimes things happen in the sport, and I don't get to choose whether I get to talk about it or not. I mean, if it's going on in the sport, it's something we have to damn cover, right?
Yeah.
And last year, the Martinsville stuff went down, and I had some comments about that, and I knew that you probably weren't real happy with it, but we were at this is who you are as an individual. We were at Phoenix getting ready to run for the championship in the Busch race, and your car's on the grid with Austin Hill, and my car's right behind yours, and you come walking through, and as I would any weekend, right? I was like, "Hey, Richard," because I thought we were gonna say, "Hey, man, good luck, have fun."
Yeah.
And you stopped and you said, you basically chewed my ass. You were like,
I don't remember.
You don't. Boy,
Nope.
You were madder than hell. You grabbed me and walked me away from everybody and said, "I don't appreciate what you said about that Martinsville stuff." And you were really you said a few things there, and I don't remember exactly the word for word. Dude, I can't believe you don't remember that.
I don't.
You were hotter than hell.
I do. You know, I can get hot and be
And
over
in that moment, like we're getting ready to
Yeah.
race for the Xfinity Championship, and you saw me, and you were like, "I got a bone to pick with you."
Yeah, Austin said,
I text Austin.
"What?" Yeah, he said, "What did you say to Junior?" I said, I can't really remember." I said, but I almost called him before I come over here in case you asked me to say, "Why was I upset with Junior?" Because I ain't kidding you. I don't remember anything I said.
You were so mad. And
but you know, the whole thing, that deal in Richmond cost us over $3 million. It's not always about the money.
Yeah. But I mean, $3 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's real money. But those two things, and I'll never get over Richmond. Of all the things that's ever happened in our career, the Richmond race, I'll never get over that one. Because I've seen it happen so many times. So many times I've seen those things happen, and the same two guys that was involved in it are the two biggest culprits. But it come down to who had the most power that could get in NASCAR's ear the hardest, and they came down unless the hardest, and it just disappoints me. And but the deal at Martinsville, I don't even remember what you said. I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing you and talking to you, but hell, I don't remember them things.
Scared the shit out
I
of
do
me.
it all. I know I do it all the time. I got a passion, Junior, just
Yeah.
like you got a passion. You get wound
I
up.
text Austin, your grandson, and I said, I didn't really ask him anything. I just texted him. I said, "Hey, man, Richard is pissed off at me." I was like, "He just chewed my ass," and he goes, "What, really?" I was like, "Yeah, it's about something I said on my show about the Martinsville thing," and I was like, "Cause you've never really chewed my ass yet.
No, I do.
That's the only time you've ever
don't
chewed
remember.
my ass." But
I don't remember me chewing your ass. I might have told
Listen
you what
now.
I was thinking.
No, that was that was like my uncle or that was like somebody in my family coming down on me, and I was like, "Hey, all right, I understood. I heard loud and clear."
Look, let me tell you something about an ass chewing you and I got together one time from your dad.
Oh.
Do you remember Japan?
I do.
And I loaned you a set of tires, and you roughed him up.
Yeah.
And boy, he
chewed your ass?
Oh, he chewed my ass out, and he chewed your ass.
Well, I know. He threw a shoe at me. He damn near took my head off.
Yeah, I never will forget you on that bus. You're sitting over like this, and I was sitting, I think, next to Dale or something. Both of us had our head down. We didn't say nothing for a while. But that's just passion.
Well,
you know?
It's like 10 laps to go in this race, and Dad, Dad was like, "Yeah, I'm not coming down pit road. This race is over. My car ain't," he'd run like 6th, 7th the whole race, and he's like, "Yeah, we're just going to ride it home."
Yeah.
And me and Tony Jr. are like,
Give me a set of tires.
Let's come on in. Let's get some tires. Let's keep digging. We didn't know any better. And I knew I had to act fast when I got those tires, and so I think I run Dad up off turn 4 and squeezed him into the wall.
You did.
And he tried to spin me out down the straightaway. And then he learned that I did it on his tires.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't have you. Now, that was an ass chewing.
Yeah.
I didn't give you an ass chewing.
Yeah.
I never did, But
I remember we had a really fun flight, 13 hours to Japan, and the 13 hours home from Japan was
Painful.
quiet.
it was painful.
Quiet.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring that up because I'd seen you pop off on some people, and we all know about the deal with Kyle at I guess it was Chicago or Kansas somewhere, but years ago, the hold my watch thing.
Yeah.
And so we kind of know you have that fiery passion that you talk about, but I'd never been on the other end of it, man. That was something. I'm glad that you don't hold. I'm glad you don't hold that chip on your shoulder very long.
I don't. Well, Kyle's driving for me today.
Yeah,
so
I want to know that. Like, when did you and him ever really sit down and like talk about that day?
that was the first part of the conversation.
Right. So how did that go?
We walked in and we were at the airport and we sat down at I got a conference room there and we sat there and Austin hooked us up where we could do it, and I said, I don't forgot which one of us. I said, Kyle, I said, start with, that's history. We're going to put all that behind us, and we won't never bring it up again. And we've never brought it up again.
Yeah.
And I don't even like to talk about it because it was history.
Yeah.
Just like with you, that was history.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm just,
All right.
You're still like part of my family.
Yeah.
You are my family. The Earnhardts and Childress and Dillons, all of us are family. That's the way I look at it. But, it's kind of like jumping on your brother every now and then.
Yeah.
You got to chew them out. Talked about that on that race the other night with them 2 kids out there of ours. That's going to be a conversation.
That's still not had yet?
Not yet.
Did Kyle seem eager to was Kyle happy to hear that you wanted to put that behind y'all? I know that y'all have went on down the road and y'all are racing together, winning together, and having a good time. But I guess he was probably excited to put that, because me and Kyle had a run in 2008, I guess, and we didn't talk about it forever, and we really didn't we didn't see eye to eye and didn't get along. But man, when we finally sat down and talked about it, it was nice to put that to bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the way we are. We put it to bed, and to me, it's history. You learn from history. I think his saying was, I think we've grown up a lot. I can't remember exactly what he said.
That's a good way to put it.
We both have a different attitude and thinking today. And let me tell you about Kyle Busch. He is such an amazing individual to start with. He has a passion for racing. He don't want to lose. Before the race on Sunday morning, they went and worked on the simulator because he knew he wasn't good, and he wants to win. He's going to do everything. But for him, we've had some tough. Last year was a tough year.
Yeah.
For him to work and still encourage the employees, he didn't come loose and start cussing and raising hell like some people would think he would be doing.
Right.
He's trying to help us build that thing, and I still got confidence that we can win a championship.
Yeah,
and that's just that's the way Kyle is. And man, I'm happy to work with him. He's just, like the other night over there, we didn't have a really good car, but once he got it figured out, and they kept adjusting on it, got their lap back. He took off and he run pretty good then.
Yeah, I was kind of curious how he's handled. The last season was a tough one for you guys. And the old Kyle, listen, none of us know exactly how Kyle is when outside of the cameras, what we see on social media or what we've seen on TV. I'm talking over the last couple of decades, right?
Yeah.
And it was all of our assumptions that when things weren't going well, one might assume that Kyle is kicking and screaming behind closed doors, fussing, right?
Yeah.
But we all do mature, and maybe that wasn't even the case then. But I am curious as to what his attitude's like what his personality's like during this past year when y'all have struggled. You talk about him trying to, staying positive. You talk about his work ethic, trying to make sure y'all are making the right gains in the off season and trying to prepare for this coming year. How has he supported the team and been, trying to be part of the solution to getting you guys back on track?
He's there. He's working close with everybody. He doesn't come in. I mean, he has a right to. I mean, I get more wound up about running bad, I think. I know he does too, but he has I think he's, the word we use, we both matured a lot. Mm-hmm. And once he's got Brexton, his son, racing and sees the young things, he wants him to do better. He wants him to have a different style. I think coming out, he wants him to win, and he is a winner. He's a good little driver. But I think that those things mature you no different than Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
Once his son got up, you mature, and you just, yourself, you see things around you, how you've got to mature, and life changes all of us, and age changes all of us. And I think that's one thing that Kyle has, and he has a good, strong family relationship with his family, and I think he wants to show them the right way to go about things.
Yeah. What changes, there was a conversation, I listened to Austin's comments a lot in the media, and during the back half of last year, Austin made multiple comments about, we have a plan. We have some things that we're going to do. We've got a few levers we're going to pull. I don't know whether this was a hire or a couple hires or what, that he was excited about that was going to change the performance in the race team. Can y'all speak to some of the things you've done in the off season to try to turn the performance around for RCR?
Yes, about halfway through the season last year, a little past halfway, I said, got everybody together and said, we're going to change the culture of RCR. Our culture was not the way I wanted to see it. And we've changed that culture. Now you see people walking around with their heads high. We see people with that extra bounce in their step when they're walking through there. And I think changing the culture, we've put a lot of new people in a lot of new places. And we've got we're changing a lot, even all the way up the board. And I think it's going to be for the good. The results will say if we made the right decisions. I really feel good about a lot of decisions we made. They don't come overnight. You can't turn these ships. They're pretty big. It's hard to turn them overnight. But I feel really confident about what we can do this year.
Yeah. Well, at your age, you have to be thinking about the long-term plan, right, beyond you.
Yep.
And I've said this out loud a few times, that I think, as much as I know Austin loves to drive, to race, to win, and he can still do that. He's got as many years as he wants, right, to continue to be a successful race car driver. But in my mind, I'm hoping and wishing for Austin to also develop into that leader type of mentality like you have that can steer that ship. Is that the plan? I mean, do you guys have those conversations? I know that, Dad, and if we were to sit around years ago, Dad would say things like, this is for your kids, this is for your kids. But we never really talked details. Are y'all into the process of discussing some details or what the future looks like?
Yes, and that's a good question. We bought a PBR franchise.
Yeah.
So I put Austin running it to get used to what it was like dealing with drivers, dealing with the sanctioning body. He is running that whole deal, the PBR, Carolina Cowboys.
Yep.
And it's given him some education. I never will forget, after the first year he come to me, he said, Pop, I know why you hate these managers, because all the riders today has got managers, and he's having to deal with the sanctioning body, the budgets. So I think this has given him a good education. Ty now has come back and says, I want to be involved
Yeah.
in the sport. So who knows in life what will happen. It's sometime I tell them, I'll say, I don't want to burden you guys with this, because this isn't the easiest, as you know yourself. Running a race team isn't for the faint of heart. You know, you gotta make a lot of tough decisions. You got to make a lot of decisions sometime that you say, what's going to be the outcome of this decision?
Yeah.
And have strong people around you that can help you make those decisions. That's what I look for. And I think we're grooming Austin for that part of it. Mike Dillon's working in that. My daughter runs the winery for us.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole family they want to see that keep going on. I want to see it continue. And that's why we're trying to, and I've told them all, it's for the family.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing what I was doing today if it wasn't for the family.
Sure.
And then as you get older on down the line, all your family gets behind you, you're going to say, this is for our family.
Yeah.
Everything you're doing.
I have noticed in the past, 6 months to a year, Ty has moved back closer to, you see him and Austin hunting together, creating memories and sharing, their families engaging. What's been the instigation behind that? It's good to see them two boys together and doing things. There was a time, I think, where Ty had kind of wandered over here and was trying to do his own thing and putting his own deals together. But it's kind of like you just mentioned, it's kind of like he's come back home. Yeah,
he has. I think he and Austin had some conversations. I had some conversations, and we all realize now that blood's thicker than anything else.
Yeah.
And you look after your families, and that's what we always try to do.
Well, it's good to see, and I think I texted Austin when I saw them. They had this hunting trip together. I said, "Man, that's nice to see you boys enjoying each other."
Yeah, and see them with both of them have young
kids. Yeah,
boys around 4 years old. See them out.
Yeah, that's
teaching them how to hunt and be out there. That's the way when I carried them, they were real young.
Yeah,
and they said, "Man, it's great to be able to carry our sons and do what you taught us."
They need to be those kids. Knowing what I know, or my opinion about it is regardless of how the relationship between the brothers may be, or any set of brothers, the kids need to know each other, right? That generation,
sure.
You got to put them together. You got to have them spending time together and making memories together, because I think about this with my own girls. My parents are gone. My grandparents are gone. In North Carolina, there's my sister who's my age, a couple years older, but there's not a lot beyond myself and Amy. Who are the people that my girls are going to gravitate toward, right? Mm-hmm. When my leadership is gone, or when my ability for me to advise them is not there anymore, right? And so they gotta have those sibling, those sort of cousins, and those relationships need to be strong. But that's good to see. I wanted to ask you about the charter agreement. We're all sitting here watching this lawsuit thing go down. I don't know that, I kind of wasn't sure how detrimental this could be for the sport, but I'm not too concerned at this point. I think having conversations with some of the people in the industry, it's one of these deals that's just got to play itself out. Everybody's going to have to probably compromise when it's all said and done, but they'll eventually come to some terms, and the sport will continue to move down the road. But I'm not a guy that owns a charter, right? Mm-hmm. You are. Does the lawsuit concern you at all?
I think I got to be careful how I answer this, because I could get eat up. I think that they had a reason to not sign the agreement. We received it hours before, and we had a deadline to sign it, and they signed it. Yeah. I mean, I signed it. I had to. I had no choice. I have sponsors. I have everything out there. But they felt that they had a reason and right to. There was only 3 or 4 things that we were missing on that everyone was still trying to negotiate. And when those negotiations was over, these two guys went on their own, which I'm glad to see them do it, because they stood up for what they felt were right, and they have the backing that they can do it. But I think, like you said, I think it'll end up working out. What we were asking for wasn't going to cost NASCAR nothing, and all we wanted was to be treated fair, and that's all these two guys are asking for now, is to be treated fair in it. And
can you speak to the few terms that you wanted? That you don't have to if you don't want to.
I think one of the biggest ones, that's just like the PBR. Man, the first PBR franchise, their franchise, sold for $3 million. They sold 6 of them. I bought mine for just a little more. The last two franchise sold for $22,500,000 apiece.
Damn.
And then we got split. The owners, those 8 owners, got split 50% with the sanctioning body.
Right.
And that's all we wanted out of it. That's all I want to see for my family, is I want to see the enterprise value of those charters should be 10 times where they are today. Just like football and everything. That's all. I think that's what we're all asking for.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you at all. I've watched the charters go. When BK Racing was trying to sell his and get rid of his for $2 million, and then somebody walks in the door and wants to sell you one for $6 million, and then a couple months later a guy walks in and wants to sell it for $12 million, and then now they're valued, or they're probably likely, if there were to sell on the market, anywhere from $25 to $40 million. And so the value is expanding. And I mean, I think if you're a company or an investment firm with that kind of capital, getting into owning a charter in the NASCAR world is a very good buy, because I think, to your point, it won't be very long where they'll be valued at $150 million and beyond. NFL teams, I look at it like an NFL team or NFL franchise. I know Washington, when Dan Snyder bought them back in the 90s or late 80s, was $800 million, right? And then just recently it sold for $6 billion. So I don't see why the NASCAR charter won't continue to increase in value. But and also, so you're telling me, like, so if we've myself at this table for the last 4 years have batted around all kinds of silly ways to get a charter, or ways NASCAR could expand the charters. So if NASCAR said, hey, we're going to have 37, we got a new charter, we're going to create a charter, right? And we're going to give it to a team. That team's going to buy it, but we're designated, for example, Junior Motorsports to buy this charter for $20 or $40 million, whatever the number is, right? It would make sense that the teams would have to for the teams to accept that new charter to exist. You would then benefit from that financially, that purchase of the charter. The teams would split some or all of that $40 million or whatever it is for that team to purchase. And so that was what you guys were trying to.
Yeah, that just to build the enterprise value around a charter. These charters, no different. I keep going back to the PBR because we got rider. We're the same, set up the exact same way. Sanctioning body, independent riders, just like we have independent drivers. Everything's the same. There was one team that just sold 40% of their franchise, Oklahoma, for a value of $40 million. In 4 years, it's gone like it. We've had these charters for 10 years, and they've gained 10% maybe.
Sure.
If you go from $3 million to $30 million, so that's all I'm saying.
Do you think if they were to, do you think if they mash the button and all of a sudden that charter is yours, eternally, that creates that value? Because now, because as it is, I guess the way we fans view it is like you have the charter for as long as the agreement.
7 years.
Right, now. Right, and then but like the PBR or any other sports team, you would obviously want to own that charter outright. Do you think that would absolutely kick into motion the increase in value? Because you would then be able to say to someone who might want to invest, hey, this is mine and this could be yours. Not for the terms of this contract, but for eternity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Is that
put yourself in, and someday you'll end up with a charter. They'll figure out you'll have a charter someday. So if you were going to pay $30 million today for a charter, Junior Motorsports, and you look in 7 years, it may not be a charter. We may not have one. We don't know what it is. They've got 7 years bumped on, but on top of that, it all's around the media. But we want to just do whatever it takes to have a real solid. That charter should be permanent.
Right.
The word permanent they don't like, perpetuity or whatever they call them. Then you could say, I'll pay $30 million. This is going to be mine
forever,
and I can pass it down to my family. Sure. If I have this, and I know it's going to be here forever. RCR is going to own it till we sell it. Then just like you used the NFL, the same deal with them. I think seeing that, my family is going to have a lot more value in it if these charters were permanent. And I think that's one of the biggest sticking points today. If we all had permanent charters, you'd see a lot different atmosphere everywhere.
I guess I agree with that 100%, but I just can't see. I am kind of curious as to why NASCAR doesn't want to make it permanent. Maybe because there's just not an assured guarantee where the TV rights are headed with streaming coming in and all these different mechanisms. They're just uncertain about, where they're going to be in 15, 20 years. But I just don't see a world where NASCAR is going to yank the carpet out from under you.
No,
I
don't.
Like even though they won't agree to make the charters permanent, I don't see them getting to year 7 at the end of this charter agreement and going, you know what, we've decided that we're just not going to do charters anymore.
Yeah,
because they do have a value today. They do have a $40 million value. I can't see them just going, we're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah. Let me go back to what you said earlier when you said, that NASCAR would, if all the TV stuff went away, we're going to ride the same boat with them, up or down.
Yeah.
But we just want the charters.
I got
you.
And
if the TV goes away, which I don't think it will, in 7 years, who knows what it'll be? We got streaming, we got so much new technology. And NASCAR is going to be a big part of that. There's nothing better right now on TV than live entertainment. And that goes from football, baseball, auto racing, NASCAR, PBR. All of these things are really big today. And that's where I think, the team owners want to ride that boat. We're going to ride it up or we're going to ride it down. And we're going to support it whatever way it goes.
Well, let's talk about something that we both can agree on. And that's Kasey Kahne racing in one of the top 3 NASCAR series. He's joining your Xfinity team. They went to Rockingham to test, and he's going to run that race. How in the world did that come about?
Keith Rodman is our
Keith
was his crew chief when he drove, and he and Kasey still talk. And he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, if we can come up with some funding, would you consider running Kasey? We're going to run about 8 Cup races extra, and we're going to run 3 Xfinity races counting Kasey." And I said, "Sure, man. I love Kasey. I mean, he was a heck of a driver and just a great person too. I mean, you worked around him, you worked with him, teammates, and
really cool dude.
I just think that to have him down there and have him in the car and see that smile on his face when he come to the shop and I talked to him, you could just see how excited he was. And I think he's going to go down there and really do good.
Yeah. So he's just got the one race?
Yes, for right now, we're just holding one race.
Did y'all ask him about his – he had some had some heat-related health issues when he was racing in the Cup Series many years ago. Assuming all of that's behind him now, and we hadn't had a really chance to talk about him, but I do know that. So I inadvertently, indirectly have kind of kept up with Kasey over the years. He's one of my favorite people. Yeah. And he still looks exactly the same as he always has. And it was my hope that we've even teased a bit about him racing on one of our late model cars at the Cars Tour, but this is incredible. I think there's so many fans out there. I think we don't appreciate or realize just how many people are going to be excited about Kasey running that race and seeing Kasey or any of our drivers that have been gone that still have a little left in the tank coming back. But I do know that somebody. This is Kasey Kahne in a nutshell, man. This is exactly who this dude is. Apparently, they went to test at Rockingham, and he got there and said to somebody that I know, "When did they repave this place?" Did you know that?
Yeah.
He didn't know they paved it.
No, he didn't. It's
till he got there.
Yeah, and it was one of them things, but he really did good. Them guys said he just
I'm sure.
fired right off, and
but he thought he was going to run on the old Rockingham.
Grit.
Yeah.
Old rocks.
He got there and he's like, "Holy we're hauling ass."
Yeah, it was fast.
Yes.
Yeah, and but he did good. I'm excited for him and that team. We changed crew chiefs on the 21 and put Chad Haney as a crew chief. Now we got Andy Street is going to run those other races. I want to try to get Andy broke in for another Cup team if we ever go to a full 3 team, and try to teach him some of that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're all excited about Kasey coming back. We wanted to dip back into the history. We had you on the show 2019. We talked a lot about your life and all of those all the things that went on with Dad and everything. But there were some things that we didn't get to. One of the things I think, and I've heard this story, but you started racing as an independent in the Cup Series, and originally your number was 96. Why 96?
I can't say it on
Okay.
Just like if I flipped upside down.
Oh my gosh, was that really why?
That's true.
Oh
so
my
I
God.
ended up, I'm upside down. So we'll stop it there.
All right.
Can you dig at?
Why did you go to number 3?
I wanted a low number. Farrell Hinkle was lettering my cars, and he said, "Man, I didn't have a lot of money." He said, "If you just get a single-digit number, I'll cut your cost in half."
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up, and the 3 was available. I remember talking to Ray Fox, and I thought I got it through them. Then I talked to Al Rudd. He said we had it before, so I don't know how it all come about, but I ended up with the 3, knowing Ray Fox and how everything went down. And the Al Rudd, they could have gave it to me. I can't remember, but we ended up with the 3, and that's why, because I only had to pay half as much to hand letter it.
Sure.
So that's why
a good
we did
reason.
it.
You ran your last Cup Series race in 1981, the season finale at Riverside. You started, I think, a starting park with Junior Johnson.
Yep.
So he just had to. I think they were battling for the championship with Darrell.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But if we talk about that, that's fine. But I really kind of want to go back to. I know the whole story about Dad, and y'all putting Dad in the car at Michigan. I want to know. You talked about, I guess you kind of mentioned it briefly a moment ago, but how did you handle that emotionally? You decided you weren't going to race anymore. You're still well healthy enough to race. You'd always made it work. You'd always, stretched the money and made it work. So it wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to have to close my shop or I got to do something else, right? This Dad come along with the sponsor. Junior Johnson got in your ear and said, you ought to do this.
Yeah.
But I want to know how you felt emotionally when you went to that racetrack and you weren't the one climbing in the car.
Yeah, you can kind of relate to that. Let me go back just one step. Why I got out of it was I could see, I was running it as a business. I was feeding my family, and all of us were living off of what I could make racing. But I could see I could have some top 10 finishes, run pretty good, every now and then get a top 5. And then when Warner Hodgdon, Harry Ranier, Osterlund, all of these people started coming in with money, ORC just kept going backwards. I wasn't happy running in the top 15, and I said, man, if I don't do something soon, I got to get out of this car. So I knew your dad wasn't happy with the Osterlund deal, and JD Stacey.
Yeah.
It was a whole mess right in there.
Do you know anything about that? Because I'm asking specifically about JD Stacey. So he's an enigma. He's kind of this, he's this
coal miner.
Yeah, the reputation around him isn't an awesome one. I guess at one point, somebody was trying to blow his car up. He and Harry Hyde had a falling out. Him and Neil Bonnet had a falling out, and I'm assuming that Neil got into Dad's ear when JD bought the team and said, "Boy, you ain't gonna like that." Yeah. But and then he had his name on all them cars, and eventually the money ran out, and he wasn't paying everybody, and then he disappears. Right?
Yeah.
That was later on, a couple years after 1981, but he just seemed like a strange fella, right? And there's not a lot of inventory out there about him in terms of real stories. But what was the garage's opinion of JD Stacey?
I think, it's hard to say because there was so many opinions, and some liked him, the people that he was working for him at the time. Some of the drivers did, some of the drivers didn't. But your dad, I never will forget, he said, "I'm not going to be sold." And that was his reason when we talked that Osterlund had sold to Stacey. And we talked about it. He and I were hunting buddies down in South Carolina, and, man, we talked about getting back together after those 10 races. Yeah. But those 10 races, I met with Junior at the old I think it was a Motel 6 or whatever it was. We was staying in Anniston, Alabama, and talked about it. And then we went up to the Downtowner, and it was 4 of us in there. I got AJ Foyt's deal for tires, and I ended up getting I think it was $10,000 or something from Wrangler, a race.
10 a race?
Yeah, 10 a race. And when it was all over, money. When it was all over, I'll never will forget when those 10 races were over. I was in debt $75,000.
Why?
And I was in trouble, but I never will forget. I went over and talked to Mr. Bowman with.
Who's that?
He ran. He ran the Wrangler.
Oh.
And I told him he added me another $50,000, and that's how I was able to survive. Is he paid me extra money for running for him because we ran good in some of those races.
Why did y'all? So you ran this thing as a business, fed your family. How did you let it get upside down? You got out of the car and it was supposed to make some more money.
Yeah,
but it ended up costing you. How did I get? Forgive me for not being more eloquent, but how in those 10 races did things get so upside down financially? Because thinking, Dad coming in, the sponsor coming in. Where was it the having to pay Dad, also having to try to?
If you knew what I paid him, it was very little.
Well, then you're building cars. You're building cars you weren't necessarily normally building.
Yes, that and people. We hired a lot of people from Osterlund, and that's where
payroll went
way up. Traveling, moving everybody around.
How'd you let that happen?
Yeah, because I'm a gambler. I've gambled all my life, and I knew this was my RCR's opportunity. When we had a championship driver, a great talent, if I could make it work, we could get another good driver in there. And I was ready to go back in it. It's a long story I could tell.
You was ready to go back in the car?
Yeah, if I had to, And then we took, Greg Sachs to Daytona.
Yeah.
And we were testing. We were building taking those 115-inch wheelbase cars and turning them into 110. We were testing down there. I tested the car.
You drove it?
Yeah, I tested it, and Darryl drove our car. And
did you like it?
Yeah, it was. And it was kind of a handful.
How did Greg wreck it?
Coming off of 4, it's a long story that I don't want to discuss on here, but coming off 4, he flipped it, put it up in the air.
Why don't you want to discuss it?
I'll tell you later.
Oh,
anyway, it's a hell of a story.
Well, let's hear it.
Hell, when he flipped up, went off the racetrack, went around the corner, there was his helmet. I said, oh, hell, his head's in it.
Holy
That's how bad a wreck it was.
Oh, my God. I saw there's pictures of the cars. They're very grainy, but he destroyed this car.
Yeah.
Lost his helmet.
Yeah, knocked his helmet off, knocked him out. He was in the hospital for a while, and I'll leave it at that. I'll tell you later on the rest of the story. It's always, what was that? Paul Harvey said,
yeah, there's more
and
to the story.
And you'll hear the rest of the story.
Yeah.
But anyway, we did that, and at that time, I was going to figure I might get back in the car, but Ralph C. Graves had kind of hooked me up with Piedmont Airlines. Yeah. I said, man, this is my chance. I'm a young driver, they wanted a young up-and-coming driver. I said, I'm going to get me a sponsor now. I went and talked to Bill up there, and I said, he said, no, we want a real young driver. I was 35 or 6, And so I got Ricky Rudd, and that's when we hired Ricky Rudd. And, man, it's so much history. One of these days I'm going to write that book. Yeah. But I hope I get to, because everybody says a live man's story is going to be a lot better than a dead man's.
Yeah. I had Ricky on the show. I remember when my mom's house burnt down, and she gave custody of me and Kelly to Dad, and we went to Dad's house, and we're living at Dad's at the lake. And I mean, I ain't been there, it don't seem like but a month or two. And Ricky Rudd and his wife pull up on the boat to the dock at the house. We lived on the lake. And so I'm, in my mind, I'm like, oh, Dad's friends with some of the racers, right? And Tim Richmond would come around, and I'm like, oh, man, Dad and Ricky Rudd are friendly. And they were pals, right? Ricky comes off, they back slap and high five, and, hey, man, what you up to, man? Well, we're just riding around on the lake. They were just buddies. Yeah. And then after, but I had Ricky on the show, and he's like, I felt like when Dale got back with Richard in '84, like he took what I worked on and what I built. Ricky is sour about that. And, he ends up going with Bud Moore, and, then they kind of raced each other pretty hard. And then, Wilkesboro thing with Ricky when he's in the Quaker State car. And, Ricky is still sour over that with Dad. He's like, he basically said in so many words, I was friends with your dad, but I didn't know what he was doing behind my back. And he kind of rooted me out of that deal at RCR, and I felt like I'd helped made that team what it had become. And Dale was he even said, he's like, Dale was asking me in like 82, 83, what y'all doing over there? That thing looks like it's going pretty good. And he's like, I had no idea he was going to ask me, and he was learning about the team and the progress y'all were making to go and root him out.
Yeah, think back on what I said a few minutes ago in 1981 when I got together, and right after that we were still hunting buddies. Yeah, it's so much more to this story with Mike Curb and all of. If you knew half of the stuff.
So Mike Curb gets you guys together in the back end of '83.
Yep, and we decided we didn't want to go that route, and we ended up.
Mike Curb called a meeting and said he wanted to partner.
He wanted
with you
both of us
and Dad.
Yeah, and it didn't work out. Dale and I rode together, and we stopped, had a cool one, and talked about it, and decided that we'd just hold off on that.
Yeah,
it just wasn't. It didn't feel right.
Sure,
and
did that get the ball rolling in the conversation of actually getting back together?
No, I think that was part of it, but the biggest part was we talked about it in '81 when we finished those 10 races. We both agreed. I didn't have the money. To run him those 10 races. I had to borrow everything I could borrow him.
Did Ricky Rudd ever tell you that he was disappointed?
No, but I could tell it.
Yeah.
He never said it, and I could tell it. I'm proud to see him go in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But we had talked about this throughout. Dale and I had talked about getting back together, and the opportunity came along with Wrangler for he and I to get back together. And so that's how Wrangler, both, I can't remember that guy's name right. I see him, but he he ended up sponsoring
Both
Bud
of 'em.
Moore and
Yeah.
us. And Bud Moore, I never will forget, he told me we was at Riverside. That's when we run Riverside. He said, boy, y'all won't last 6 months. Both of you is just alike. We made it 20-some years, 20 years or more.
Yeah.
But, those were some precious memories. Some of the greatest memories of my life came out of that era,
Oh, yeah. We've heard the stories about how it all happened, but I've learned a lot in this room of the kind of behind the scenes in terms of like how the other players involved, right, and Ricky Rudd and all of that, and it's really fascinating to me. The Dad, I remember when Dad drove Bud's car, Bud would always tell Dad, Dad liked to hammer the throttle, kind of like Buddy Baker did, and Bud didn't like his car drove that way, and didn't think he's like, hey, motor's not going to last. You keep racing this way, right? And they did have a lot of engine problems with the Ford back then before they figured things out. But when Ricky got in the car, Bud Moore and those guys had it pretty dialed in. Ricky had some really, really good runs, but when Dad come over to drive your car, I imagine Dad had free reign to drive the car however he wanted. Bud and even Suitcase Jake Elder, they like to control how the driver drove the car, right?
Yeah.
Damn, Suitcase Jake and Dad would go at it, arguing about how hard Dad needed to be running in any particular moment in the race. Bud was the same way, just kind of always reminding Dad not to push that hard. Didn't need to push that hard. Did y'all have that kind of conversation when y'all got back together around, how Bud liked Dad to do things and how Dad wanted to do things?
Not really. I said, we want to go win. Let me tell one story, one thing about your dad that outstands over any drivers that I've known. 1985, we blew 11 races, and he and Teresa would come up to my house, and they would stay, and we would leave there and go out a little airport out of Lexington, fly out. Mm-hmm. We went to Pocono, and we blew up. Any long straightaways, it was a long story how we fixed it and everything. But we got back that evening. It was pretty quiet on the airplane. Coming back, we blew up. I knew that we wasn't doing a champion a good job.
Y'all were having some oil pressure issues on long straightaways.
Yep.
What was it?
Lou LaRosa had a cigarette in his mouth, and he was honing the lifter bores. I went in there myself with these guys. That's when I worked on the engines and helped build them. Mm-hmm. And we had the oil pan off, and I said, we're going to watch this thing and see what happens. And it's blowing all the oil out around the lifters, the lifter bore. Well, we sleeved them, and that fixed the problem. But I told Dale that evening, we got back. He come over to the house to get his car. And I never will forget, I lived on over there off of Gumtree Road. And I can't remember it right now. But I remember the house and the wall we sat on. And I sat down, and Dale sat down. I said, Dale, you need to get you another ride next year. You're better than this. We've blown up 11 times. We can't keep right. You don't need to be here. I said, you deserve better. I never will forget the look on his face, and he turned and looked at me. He was sitting on my left, and he turned and looked, and he said, we started this together. We're going to finish it together. That's the kind of man he was, and he had all kind of offers to go other places, and he might have won a lot more championships if he had. Sometime kind of wished he had, but we had such a great relationship. But that's the kind of man your dad was. If he gave you his word, he was going to stand up to it.
Yeah,
and I was the same way. We both agreed, and that's how he was.
You worked as a stuntman throughout the 1980s.
Yeah.
What in the hell? Why did you need to do that?
Help pay bills.
Really?
Anything I could do.
Being a stuntman paid that good?
Yeah. Some of them did. They said, okay, who wants to wreck his car? I'd raise my hand.
So you had a relationship with Hal Needham, who was a famous stuntman.
Stan
Barrett as well, right?
Yeah.
How did that begin?
Stan Barrett started driving for Hal Needham, and nobody get around him or draft. I'd say, come on out, I'll draft with you. And we became friends, and then he got to telling me about doing some stunt work. when I had time in the week, during the week, I'd take off and go somewhere. Hell, I doubled Burt Reynolds one time. I put on his wig and his shirt, sweatshirt, and wrecked a motorcycle. And probably the dumbest thing I'd done was I slid a motorcycle down in front of a 182 plane that was landing. They said, "Who'll do this?" Hell, they paid $400 or $500 to do it, and that was big money back in the day. Neil Bonnet and I, we were in a police car. We were playing policeman, and that was in Smokey and the Bandit too. And so we pulled this lady over. She had her Earnhardt license on the front of her car, and she had a Camaro. And we was in that cop car. We spun that thing around and went after. We pulled this lady over. We wasn't cops, but we pulled this lady over, and we're out there walking around looking at everything. And he asked about that. Neil asked her about that thing on the front of her car, and I'm out there walking around looking. He said, "Well, if you're an Earnhardt fan, we're going to let you go for this." It's so, man, I've had some great times, and that's what life's about.
When did you decide you no longer was the stunt jobs regular, or just kind of knew they could call you when they needed somebody, and it was typically?
Yeah, I think one of the last ones that I did, the last one I did was the Super Mario Brothers. I don't know if you remember that movie.
When?
Down at Wilmington. We were filming it, and that's where they used to build concrete plants, concrete ships in this big building. And we were doing the stunt work down there, and the stunt coordinator, one of the guys ended up getting killed or really hurt bad. And I said, I need to get done with this.
Damn.
But that was ended my stunt career, was watching that. I come back with some beat up knees and stuff.
Yep, that's crazy, man. So a lot of people might not know this, but after running Wrangler yellow and blue for the 84 through 87 seasons, you would unveil the black Goodwrench scheme at Rockingham. And at the tail end of the 1987 season, the final race of the Rockingham, one of the last races in the year, you roll this car out there. But there was a design that was blue. GM wanted the car to be blue.
Yes.
How did you convince General Motors? And I guess were you even close to going, "Yep, you guys write the checks, blue it is"?
Yeah.
How did y'all convince them that they needed to have a black race car?
The Jim Goodwrench, the brake boxes were blue and white, and they wanted that same color, blue and white. So we painted one left side of the car. We painted it blue and white and put the Goodwrench on the light blue. And then I took black duct tape and silver duct tape and taped the right side of the car and put Goodwrench on it with the decals and the number 3. And I told them, I said, Archie Long was running it back in that day for GM, and we had the car sitting there just inside our old fab shop, and I said, "Well, here's the design you guys want. Here's the design that when this car is going around the track, it's going to be closer to what the asphalt looks like. You're going to be able to see this white Goodwrench, and you're going to see that white 3. Then we started with silver 3, I think.
Yep.
But I said, because I had silver duct tape, it's the reason we put it on there as good as I can remember. But we ended up convincing them that it would show up a lot better on the racetrack as a black car and number 3, and the Goodwrench being white on the back of it.
Imagine an alternate universe where there was no black Goodwrench number 3 car. It could have happened.
Very close.
Yeah. The other interesting scheme that Dad had was the Peter Max car.
Yeah.
What was Dad's reaction to that car when y'all showed it to him?
Well, Goodwrench came to us, and Peter Max is a very, very famous artist today. Yeah. And the head guy at Goodwrench met with us, and we were in the old shop with the shop there where we're at today. That's the museum. And so he brings this painting in there on it, and he had Peter Max with him. And he said, "This is a car we're going to run." And Dale knew that we needed to do something to keep the thing going. But he says, "Come out here." They had a design of his uniform. He says, I'll drive that damn car. But I'm telling you one thing, I ain't wearing that damn uniform.
Yeah.
You can count that out.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to, but he wasn't about to wear that uniform. But that was good, and it was Peter Max did both of us. I don't know where his is, but he painted Dale and I a car, a full car, and painted it and put the number 3 just like it was, and put Max on the back. He said, gave it to us. He said, "Here, you can put your kids in college with it."
Oh.
I don't know what it'd be worth. I don't know where his is, but mine's in my little collection I have.
The poppy red interior on Dad's old Goodwrench cars, where did that come from?
That was something that I wanted the car to look clean with the black on the outside. And even back before then, I wanted the car to really look clean, and I thought orange would really look good in it. And that's why we did it. And you could see anything on the car a lot cleaner. If you had a problem or something, it would show up with that orange better than it would if you just had it flat black or something.
For sure. A lot of teams would paint their car interiors black, trying to hide some things that probably weren't in the right place, or trying to some chassis that might be offset or whatever, or changing things around. And so a lot of teams would maybe paint the cars dark, so it was difficult to see some of the things that might be happening with the floor pan or what have you. But the orange interior is iconic, and I think the poppy red paint code though is a Ford paint code.
I'm not sure which one it was. We just picked it because I wanted something that if we had a crack in the floorboard or something that didn't look right, we could find it and repair it right there.
Well, man, hey, I've enjoyed talking to you. I know you got a lot going on. I wanted to ask you though, right before we get off the air here, you had a history in bootlegging, you were a real live bootlegger.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Well, it's a long story also, but when I was a kid.
The question is, did you run moonshine illegal?
Yes. But here's what happened. I didn't bring it down from the mountains. I was running a service station.
Yeah.
11 to 7. Mm-hmm. 7 o'clock in the morning, them moonshiners would bring it.
Did you own the station or you worked there?
I worked there. I didn't own it.
Okay.
I had to work there and run it at night. And I wasn't but 17, I think, 16, 17. Mm-hmm. And these bootleggers would park the car, come in there and give me some addresses, where to go, these drink houses. You deliver this there, you deliver this here, and you deliver it there. And I would do that. Now, I did move a couple down from the mountains, but most of the time.
Drink houses.
Yeah, but I'd haul that whiskey.
What's a drink house?
A drink house is right in the roughest part of town. And here's a 16, 17-year-old kid. And I'll tell you why I got out of it. But I was there, and I would take that whiskey, and I'd have to give them a case here, give them a case there. Them guys would go collect the money, and then they'd give me money to go do it.
Yeah.
But that's how I would do it. Drink houses where you'd go drink all night and party and raise hell and everything, back in the day. And
why'd you get out?
There was a killing, and I was in the right room. I heard the gun go off, and I ran. So
damn.
So that's drink houses back up there off of Old Patterson Avenue, the roughest part of town, and it was something.
I bet. God almighty.
I could still see some of that.
So are those buildings still around, some of them?
No, I go up there. I went up there a few years back, and just every now and then I'll just ride around some of these old houses, like Bowman Gray Stadium. I used to deliver meat to this community down there where Bowman Gray Stadium. I used to deliver more chitlins and salt fish than you could ever think about eating down through them houses. They're no longer there.
You've done it all.
I've seen a lot.
Yeah. Damn. All right, man. Well, pretty incredible. When are you going to write this book?
I don't know.
You better get on it.
I keep talking about it. I know I ain't getting no younger.
It's going to take a long-ass time to write.
Oh, it will. Let me ask you a question. You talk about age. If you didn't know the day you were born, how old would you be?
Huh? If I didn't know the day
that you were born.
If I just had to guess, I'd say 35.
There you go. So people ask me, I say, if you don't know when you were born, you do it and know how old you are.
Yeah.
So I think I'm about 40 with maybe 39 years of experience. How's that?
There you go.
But I enjoyed it, Junior. Back up 1 minute. I'm not pissed off at you. I don't remember. I don't
yeah.
remember all that. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember something, but I don't
Yeah.
remember anything that was said.
Well,
I couldn't even remember what it was about. I almost called Austin and said, "You remember why I was pissed at Junior and Casey asked me?"
yeah.
So
Well,
I
you don't
wasn't.
put up with no bull. I know that. I appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank you for always being so great to us. And you've seen a lot, done a lot in this sport, and I can't wait to hear some of these stories you're going to put in this book. I know you save a lot of stuff, and there's some stories that you can't tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, thank you for everything you do to celebrate Dad, and keep his honor his memory, and have a good year. I'll see you in Daytona. Hopefully we'll get to run into each other out there, and I can once I'm learning how this ownership side of it works.
Well, you're doing a good job. You've won some championships, and y'all doing a great job, and you're going to be there. You follow that dream, and that's all you got to do. And if you say pay the price for it and go and follow the dream.
Yes, sir. Richard Childress on the Dale Jr. Download. Well, that was a great conversation with Richard Childress, and it had been a while since he'd been on the show, about 5 years, I suppose. And it's always a fun, I don't know if challenge is the right word, but it's always fun to bring on repeat guests and see what kind of conversation we might have. When I'm not having a whole ton of experience as an interviewer throughout my life, it's a bit intimidating, I think, to bring on a guest for their second, third, or fourth visit. And, because in the first visit, I feel like I really try to go through the timeline of their career or life and learn as much as possible into that first episode. But it was a good conversation. I'm glad we talked about, he talked about the lawsuit and charters and his experience at Richmond with the Austin Dillon deal, and of course talked about Kyle Busch. I mean, we covered quite a bit and had a lot of things that, if you look at these pages that the team puts together, they do a really good job of kind of gleaming over the original conversation we had from the last interview, and then going in and kind of filling some holes and stuff we didn't get to. And it was entertaining. So him being a stuntman in the 80s, I mean, he's a car owner and has quite a few obligations, I'm sure, and the pressure of trying to run that operation and keep it going, and being a stuntman on the side. And then really fascinating about the bootlegging. I didn't know that he there was a killing, he said. So that was the end of his moonshine escapades. But imagine 17 years old and the bootleggers bringing that moonshine over to the gas station and saying, "All right, man, here's where you need to take all this stuff," and you being the guy that has to go handle that. That would be kind of nerve-rattling, I think. But fun conversation. And the dude is 79 years old. I'm impressed by his mental sharpness, his ability to articulate, and I think his final point about, hey, if you didn't know your age, if you didn't know the day you were born, how old do you think you'd guess you were? It took me a second to understand what he was asking there, but I thought that was a really good question, because I'm sort of at this sort of, that when you turn 50, there it's like you're getting the halfway mark. Hell, if you're lucky, right? But it's like the halfway flags, when they came out in a race, it was almost this sort of, almost an anticlimactic moment. It's an acknowledgement of, obviously, the halfway mark of the race, but it's an acknowledgement of what's been accomplished, but also the fact that there is only that much left of the event. And a lot of times when I was younger, it was kind of like, oh, darn, the race is almost, the race is half over. I'm having so much fun. And that's the way it is with life too, And I think that that's a great way. I might share that with some friends that I have conversations about this with. If you didn't know your born on date, would you take it? Would you take the fact that you're hitting these milestones like 50 years old so heavily? Probably not. So maybe that's the way I ought to live going forward. So anyhow, hope y'all enjoyed it. I sure did. It's a good way to kick off the year. We're going to have a lot of fun. We've got some we're working on guests that are coming down over the next several weeks, and there's some good ones. So this is going to be a fun year, and hopefully y'all enjoyed that. And I guess if you're listening to this on Wednesday, tomorrow will be great because we're going to have our first episode of Bless Your Heart with my wife, and can't wait to kick that off. And I really have no idea what to expect. So whatever we end up doing there, look, it's not planned, but hopefully it's good. We're going to have some laughs, have some fun. So anyways, y'all have a good week, and we'll see you tomorrow.